All right, folks, welcome back from the commercial break. You know it's Wednesday. I don't even have to say it. You guys say it before me now. It's AMAC Wednesday, one of my favorite moments of my week when I get a chance to talk with one of the smartest, most learned, and most observant experts on Washington. He's a former Assistant Secretary of State, the former Chief Investigator for House Oversight in Congress, a former clerk for Appeals Court, an intelligence officer. And today, just because he's an overachiever, he's the national spokesman for our good friends at AMAC. He's our good friend, Bobby Charles, and he joins us right now. Bobby, good to have you on the show.
John, great to be with you, and you always give me a good lead-in, so I appreciate it.
It's earned. Those are all real titles. That's the best part about it. So I've been saving this all weekend since it happened on Sunday. It caught my attention. I don't think the media caught it nearly as much, but the New York Times wrote an op-ed. It was actually written by one of the members of the editorial board, so it's one of the official voices of the newspaper. And the headline is, NATO has to change. Here's how. And I'm just going to read this passage. They talk about America's outsized presence in Europe. They spend more than the other allies. It's like 61% of the overall military support of Europe comes from the United States. They're actually quoting a Cato report that recently came on that. And also noted that the Supreme Allied Commander in Europe has never been a European. Odd, considered supposed to be a European Protection Alliance. But here's the line. It has now become increasingly clear that Europeans need to shoulder more responsibility for their own defense. In other words, the New York Times, 7 years after panning Donald Trump, now agree with Donald Trump that we're paying too much and the Europeans get away without supporting themselves in the war in Ukraine or all the other defense threats that exist on the continent. You've been saying this for a long time. Interesting to see the New York Times come around, no?
It is, John. You know, it's just fascinating. I mean, having spent time in almost every country of Europe over many years and looking at how Donald Trump very directly, of course, he was just scalded for it, but just very directly said in 2014, look, there's only 3 of the 31 countries that are paying their fair share. There are 32 countries. Only 3 are paying their fair share. The 2% that's expected. As of today, you've got 23 of the 32 now paying. And ironically, you know, the New York Times is sort of saying the obvious. The truth is the United States of America is paying for this war with Ukraine. At a minimum, we've put $52 billion in. And if you tally up the most recent numbers, it's closer to $80 billion. We, the United States of America, have funded that defense of Ukraine, and on average, the average NATO country has paid $1.7 billion versus our $80 billion. So, it's absurd for us to be. And how much do we spend on our own border last year? $17 billion. So we are paying more by 3 or 4 times. What we're spending on our own border, and Europe is out there saying you need to pay more, and Zelensky comes over here and says you need to give us more. You know, at a certain point, you say, no, we're not in this forever war business anymore, okay? This is not World War II. Ukraine is not the beginning of the end. You know, I heard the Latvian president yesterday speaking, and I spent some time in Latvia recently. Yeah, I mean, if Russia were to become, the bear of old and try to take over all of Europe, I'm sure Latvia would be on the front lines. But there's nothing in the indicators here to suggest that the appetite is any bigger than what we see. And even there, I mean, to be honest, Ukraine is an economy that's in collapse. There is I really do question the will of the Ukrainian people at this moment. And I guess my real question, and it really is more of a question, is if NATO is going to be what NATO says it is and always was, then we need to be out of the business of being, 6 or 8 or 9/10 of NATO. And meanwhile, you have ne'er-do-wells like Canada up north of us who don't pay a damn thing into NATO, and yet they say they're all part of NATO. So, I think it needs to become real. And what it's there for is to prevent, catastrophic existential things from happening. The notion that they may try to whipsaw Ukraine into becoming a member, triggering Article 5 and putting American boots on the ground between now and November, which is seriously under discussion behind closed doors, I think it's stupid. I think it's illogical. And honestly, I think people need to just shake themselves and say, if NATO is going to be a real defender of Europe, then Europeans need to pay the bulk of what is required. Right now, we, the United States, are the bulk of the force structure.
Yeah, no, it really is. And a lot of these countries, and this is something that New York Times pointed out, these countries have plenty of money. In fact, they have some of the most gracious social safety net programs that pay for everything, for healthcare, and yet they don't want to pay for their defense. And that is wrong, is what the New York Times said. Now, that's something that came out of Donald Trump's mouth a decade ago, but to see the New York Times and to see others now embracing it shows you he was way ahead of that curve. And I think that there's another moment yesterday. I think the Polish president did an interview with the Washington Times, and he said that Ukraine shouldn't have to give up any land as part of the peace deal. The Europeans seem to have struggle in understanding how are they going to bring this war to an end. But right now, Russia's got more land. It's actually winning some of the map. How does this ultimately? Russia wins in a war of attrition, right?
Yeah, so you're asking the ultimate question, and I love the Poles, and I've spent months in Poland, and I think the Poles have done more. They have done more to help the Ukrainians than anyone. They've taken them into their homes. But there has to be, the ultimate question is, what is the end game? There has to be an end game, okay? And so what you do is you have to knock heads together, which is sort of what Trump has said he would do. You have to get people to sit down and say, look, we can either kill each other until there's no one left, and we'll be the Knights of Ni in old Monty Python world, where you still think you're fighting when there's nothing left to fight for, or we're going to come to an agreement that continuing to kill people, and God forbid, I mean, the horrors of Russia, bombing that children's hospital, it is horrible. But that wouldn't have happened if we had come to a negotiated peace before now. So wars do not go on forever. They have to end, and someone has to prompt the end, and leverage may be required for that. But right now, Russia has 15-1 air assets over Ukraine. Getting into this war would certainly even up the odds, but to put us in direct conflict for no good reason with Russia on an existential basis, two nuclear powers at direct loggerheads, I don't think that's logical. They have a 4-1 advantage in personnel. Ukraine is running out of soldiers. And so what? Does that mean the United States of America needs to send our boys and girls over there to save Ukraine, which isn't even a NATO ally? And I don't think you can gild the lily by just turning them into an immediate NATO member. That really doesn't work. So what really has to happen, John, is what has happened through the ages. Smart people need to sit down and say, look, this is not going to be optimal for anybody, but this conflict needs to end, or it's going to be a leaching of the American national security capacity to respond in Asia to things, to respond in the Middle East to things. We're draining our own inventory. We're spending, as I just said, 4 times as much money on Ukraine annually than we are protecting our own border. So I think the priorities are upside down, and I think, we don't have Ronald Reagan or Abraham Lincoln, but I think Trump will do just fine if we can get the priorities right again.
Yeah, that's a great point. And there's a great opportunity. And there is enormous progress that's always made when we pursue peace through strength, peace through appeasement, which is, by the way, the current approach of this administration. It always seems to yield greater instability, greater harm to Americans. There's an amazing moment yesterday that I've been meaning to ask you about, Bobby. The director of national intelligence, Avril Haines, comes out and says, hey, Iran is fomenting psychological operations in the United States. In fact, they're funding a lot of these anti-Jewish, anti-Israel protests that we saw on campus and elsewhere. That's the same Iran that Avril Haines and Joe Biden and Tony Blinken and his team put money into and eased the restrictions on. How big a moment is it when the director of national intelligence for the president basically says, hey, the people you were funding, the people you let off the hook, the people you gave a lifeline to, they're running operations on our ground now, influence operations on our ground.
Yeah, so Iran has always long been in an information warfare environment with us, as is North Korea, as is Russia, as is China, as are some other unnamed countries. Obviously, we need to be crystal clear that their battlefront is our country. So absolutely, that needs to be known. In terms of the incredible contradiction there, look, I think most Americans know it. This is an appeasement. This president is an appeasement president. Tony Blinken God bless him. He was a friend of mine, but he's way out of his league. He's having almost as much difficulty stringing sentences together as his boss. And at the end of the day, Iran is the promoter of terrorism around the world and instability here. Chaos here serves their purposes. So, is it a surprise? No. Should we be focused on it? Yes. Did Trump focus on it? Yes. And so what did Trump do? He put maximum sanctions on Iran. So what did that do? It caused them not to be able to sell much of their oil. It caused them to focus internally. It caused stability issues to arise internally. It caused them to focus not on projecting power and instability around the world, but maintaining stability at home. That is the right way to do things. And what did Biden do? He lifted the sanctions. He plied them with billions more in money that they have no right to have. And, he's feeding the beast. When you feed evil, evil grows. When you oppose evil, evil stays static, or in the case of Ronald Reagan, it shrinks because instead of containment, he pushed rollback. It's Edmund Burke all over again, right? We know, all it takes for evil to prevail is for good people to do nothing. Same thing works on the international stage.
Yeah, very, very important. No doubt about it. It's a lesson we've learned and other countries have learned for decades, and yet the Biden administration seems to be ignorant to that lesson. And I think every day we see the consequences of it. All right, I got the big question. Does Joe Biden stay in? Does he not? How do you referee the last extraordinary 11 days of American history?
Yeah, well, I think we have a new operational definition for the word implosion. I will say that I think that because Joe Biden and the Wall Street Journal has spoken to this, because he sits on about $100 million in campaign money that until he is nominated can't go to anyone else except in $2,000 allotments. And there are not enough Lilliputians to tie him down, borrowing a bit there from Gulliver's Travels.
Absolutely.
I think at the end of the day, he stays in, probably gets nominated, unless there's a floor revolt or a virtual floor revolt on August 7th before the August 1920 convention. And then a strange turn of events begins to really materialize. I think the scrutiny really goes up at that point. If he can't rally himself, and his little circle of warriors seems to be getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and the wolves seem to be surrounding him. I mean, I think if he can't rally by that point, the Democratic National Committee, I believe, has it in their power to do a replacement ticket, which they would have to do before ballots are printed, particularly since they're probably already being filed by illegal aliens at this moment. So, at the end of the day, they're going to have to work hard on this to retain him or to resuscitate him. But it's certainly the strangest thing I've ever seen, John. You're looking at a guy who many of us have known for a long time was not competent to be there. As I say, I wouldn't trust him to feed my dogs on time, let alone be a babysitter. And so he'd leave the stove on and burn the house down. So, and we want him to be the president and hold on to nuclear weapons. I don't think so. But I think that at the end of the day, the Democrats are in a bind. They propagated a lie for so long, and they allowed themselves to believe it, or to believe that we would believe it for so long, that now climbing out of that pit is going to be a real struggle. And I think the American people deserve a real president. I think we know we don't have one, and I think that's sort of sweeping across Democratic ranks right now.
All right, folks, don't go anywhere. More of our exclusivity with Bobby Charles right after these messages. Hey folks, reliable and affordable energy is the heartbeat of our economy. Yet, bad policies keep making energy more expensive, and now millions of Americans are facing energy poverty, something that was unthinkable just a few years ago. They can't afford to pay their energy bills. Our friends at the U.S. Oil and Gas Association have a great idea. It's time to hold our political leaders accountable at every level, national, state, and local, for the energy policy decisions they've made. It's time they sign on to the energy contract with America. We are looking for policymakers who want to, one, end energy poverty in America, because no one should have to choose between putting food on the table or gas in their car. Two, make energy accessible, affordable, clean, and reliable for everyone. End the restrictions on developing all of our energy resources, renewable, fossil, and nuclear. Use all of them, all of the above. And three, produce more of everything. No more pitting one energy source against another. Let's support policies that enable all U.S. energy producers to do their jobs and produce more of everything. If you want to be part of this great effort and you want to end energy poverty and produce more of everything, go to www.energycontractamerica.com to learn more about how you can get involved. Let me give you that again. www.energycontractamerica.com. Go there today. Let me tell you, folks, if there's a surefire way to wake up feeling fresh after a night of drinking, it's with Z-Biotics. Z-Biotics are pre-alcohol, prebiotic drinks that are the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after a night of drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink alcohol, it gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Z-Biotics produce an enzyme to break the byproduct down. Just remember to make Z-Biotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly and you'll feel your best in the morning. Vacations, weddings, birthdays, reunions, you name it, we've got you covered. There's so much going on, so get the most out of your spring plans by stocking up on pre-alcohol now. Go to zbiotics.com/justnews to get 15% off your first order when you use the promo code JUSTNEWS at checkout. Z-Biotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money. No questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/justnews and then use that promo code JUSTNEWS at checkout for 15% off. Thank you, Z-Biotics, for sponsoring this episode and all of our good times. All right, folks, welcome back. More of our exclusive video with Bobby Charles. All right, I talk often about the extraordinary impact of the Association of Mature American Citizens, AMAC. Election integrity is an issue you guys have been on from day one. You've been on the radar, helping everyone understand the danger of this non-citizen voting movement that liberals and Democrats have initiated in blue cities, including Washington, D.C., where now the Russian ambassador could go vote in the mayor's election here in D.C. Insane, isn't it? Well, tonight, the United States House will pass is expected to pass a bill that requires and allows for citizenship checks before people vote, a major leap forward. Joe Biden says he opposes it. This is a big win for AMAC. You've been working this for a long time. Tell us what this does and what it means to AMAC members.
I think what it does, John, we have opposed, obviously, illegal alien voting, however you describe them, at the municipal level as well as state and federal levels. The very fact that you have to pass a law to say what the founders all believed to be true, and what we've believed to be true up until recently, tells you in what bad shape we are in. But the fact that the Democrats will literally oppose something that says that you want just citizens to be able to vote in elections that govern the citizens' country and their tax dollars and everything else is really crazy. And I think it in some ways it's the brightest of the bright lights shining on the difference between the modern Democrats and everybody else. And when I say the modern Democrats, I mean the modern progressive, Marxist, leftist, all in for the lie that will consolidate power Democrat versus the Harry Truman, John F. Kennedy Democrat versus the centrist Democrat versus the independent versus the moderate and conservative Republicans. Everybody else understands that that there is a sanctity to the sovereignty that is embodied in the vote, and we would not give that away. We should not give that away, and it should be illegal to give that away. And yet, ironically, the Democrats oppose a bill that guarantees that only citizens will vote. So I don't know how much clearer it could get, John. There is a bold undertaking here to undermine democracy, and it seems to grow by the day. The only thing that I think makes me more confident or optimistic is that the opposition to that radical behavior also grows by the day. And I'd like to hope we can outpace this craziness and restabilize the country, in the beginning of the new year, if not before that. But yeah, it's frightening. And of course, the biggest concern beyond that, getting that bill passed, which shines a bright light on the hypocrisy of the modern Democrats, is that you have these initiatives going state by state in which they're trying to allow municipal, as you just mentioned in D.C., municipal elections, allow illegal aliens in municipal elections. And of course, because we have a secret ballot, that means they can also check Joe Biden on the top of the ballot and no one knows. So, it to me is a moment where the Republic is looking in the mirror. And we either are going to be true to ourselves and change what we can by looking in the mirror and saying, no, I'm going to get up, I'm going to vote, I'm going to not permit this kind of absurdity occur in my country, or we'll be hard pressed to have a country to protect, because once illegal aliens start to vote, well, they're going to vote themselves everything, and they're going to eat your lunch and mine at the same time, and the crime rate goes up, and the taxes go down, and the benefits go out, and all of a sudden you have that very thing that brought down the Roman Empire, and you have that very thing that our founders feared could happen. We got to stop that. We got to stop that.
It is an extraordinary moment in our history, and an extraordinary opportunity for the American voters to really inject common sense into all of these issues, whether it's Europe paying its fair share, Americans being able to protect their great birthright of citizenship and their ability to vote, and tie those two together. There's so many amazing opportunities, and they're all on the ballot when it comes time in November. It's going to be an extraordinary moment for Americans to make some very compass-setting decisions that are going to probably navigate the United States for the next quarter century or more. Bobby, I'm a proud member, a card-carrying member of AMAC. I've been for a long time. I love it. I save lots of money. I love checking the website every day for news ideas. I love getting the magazine in the mail. Love listening to Rebecca's podcast. Of course, having you on is one of the great moments of my week every week. Right now, you guys are running an incredible special for this month, and this month only. If you go to amac.us/justnews, you're going to get a whole year's membership for $1. I mean, there's nothing that's $1 anymore in America. Whole year, all of those values for $1. When people join AMAC, Bobby, you know all the benefits because you live it every day and you help deliver those benefits. What are they going to get for that $1 next year? I mean, what a great expenditure. $1.
Yeah, it's something everybody listening, literally 100% of those listening, if you're not already a member, you ought to just immediately go to amac.us and, as you said, join right away, John. The reality is you get back hundreds of dollars in benefits as you choose to use them. The same way, it's sort of the conservative alternative to AARP. You get all of these benefits, and you're also supporting the country. You get active involvement by AMAC members at the state level, at the federal level, at the local level. There are more than 2 million members out there really active as delegates. It's a very bottom-heavy organization. Everything about what AMAC does is focused on the idea that you are going to change the dial in a place that matters to you. So that might be stopping ranked choice voting. It might be stopping late-term abortion. It might be guaranteeing citizens vote and non-citizens don't vote. But their record has been extraordinary. I mean, that group alone has turned the dial at a grassroots level all over the country. You can also get training, these boot camp for boomers, we call them, which is sort of a funny name, but the idea behind it is get to train yourself on how to be good at influencing the world in which you live. And then they've got Social Security and a Veterans Foundation. They are really, really dedicated to saving America. So honestly, for $1, there's nothing you can get out there that compares with an AMAC membership.
Yeah, it's an extraordinary thing. I'm such a huge fan. And folks, if you want to say thank you for all that AMAC does to make Just the News, John Solomon Reports, Just the News, No Noise, the great TV specials we do with Rebecca, having Bobby on every week here. All that's made possible by their incredible partnership and support of us. Here's a way you can say thank you. If you like Just the News and you like what we do here on AMAC Wednesdays, go right now to AMAC, amac.us/justnews. Go get one of those $1 memberships. Go bring their numbers up. Go tell them you appreciate what they're making possible here at Just the News. All the investigative reporting, the whistleblowers, all the things we've exposed here. It comes through partnerships like the incredible friends and partners we have at AMAC. So go check that out today. You'll be happy. It'll pay for itself hundreds of times over. It's an amazing, amazing thing.
John, let me add just 10 seconds, and that is you can also get a gift membership for somebody. And for $1, you can make your 10, 20 closest friends and relatives happier than happy with a $1 subscription to AMAC, because they get this magazine, which is unbelievable. They get all the benefits of the foundations, and, of course, they get the economic benefits. And, what a great gift to give somebody.
Yeah, it is. That's right. In fact, that's a really, really great idea. You're right. All right, folks, we are going to take a quick commercial break. Bobby, again, thank you for all you do. Thanks for all the wisdom and this NATO thing. I think people starting to appreciate that how far the Democrats have had to move, because it turns out Trump's NATO policy was beneficial to the world. So great to have you on today. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, John.
All right, folks, that wraps up another edition of John Solomon Reports, a podcast from Just the News. A big thank you to all the guests today, Brian Stile, and of course, Bobby Charles, and to AMAC and all my good friends there, Rebecca Weber and Andy Mangione. Such a great group. They're all doing great work there. Be sure to check out what they're doing and how they're doing it and become a member. amac.us/justnews, $1 for 1 year. That's a great deal. All right. If not, give it a gift. If you're already a member, spend $1, give it a gift to someone. They'll benefit for years to come. All right. We'll be back tomorrow with another edition of John Solomon Reports, a podcast from Just the News. God bless you and have a great night.